Hello, I'm Janelle Kaiser with the Monroe Public Library, and today we have Jennifer Krahenbuhl visiting with us. Jennifer has made some really neat stuff that we're going to be talking about today, but first I wanted to talk a little bit about Jennifer. Jennifer, you are a longtime Monroe resident, right?
Yeah.
And you love to create.
I do.
That is your happy place, isn't it?
It is.
Yes. And your favorite medium to use is what?
Actually, watercolors.
Watercolors, nice. Very cool. Lots of neat stuff that can happen with watercolors.
Yeah.
You used your creative spirit during a difficult time in your life to create some lasting memories for you and your family.
Right. This is the original, the first journal book that I made. It would have been during the pandemic, and so I was diligently staying at home, and I opened a bin, and there were old pictures, old family pictures that were just priceless. They were just wonderful. And I thought, how can I use these old pictures to help to tell my story? And so I copied the pictures. I wouldn't want to destroy the originals, but I copied the pictures, and I was able to put pictures of my family that my children would not know who they were. And some of them I do know, and some of them I actually don't know, but I was able to put them in a book and write a little bit about who they are so that my children will know who they are. So that was fun, and one thing led to another, and adding little bits and pieces that were interesting and pretty and fun. Wow. Some of the different booklets I've made, this is more of call it a junk journal, made from old junk, old receipts, and put together in little different pieces just to make something very interesting just to look at and spend time with. This is one of the first books that I made. This would be with watercolor. I made a little Peter Rabbit type book, a tunnel book. Books are just so fun to make. Well, and we're here in the library, so what's better than books? I've made teeny tiny books. Grandchildren love those too. More junk paper, just folded up, bound up together in a little book, just the right size for little fingers. You can make an art book with just different types of art displayed on it, just to enjoy looking at. I found a box of old lace. It's probably older than I am, so that makes it pretty old, in a box that came from my folks' house. A lot of the books that have come from this idea, this creating a book idea, has been the packing paper that you get in your boxes that come from Amazon or from wherever you order from. I take the paper, I iron it and bind it. I research different binding methods. Some are more elaborate and some are very, very simple. So what I'm going to do today is show you how to very simply bind up some of the packing paper or whatever papers you may have at home to make a journal, a booklet. Okay, we're going to bind our sections of our book together. Your paper will be approximately 8.5 by 6. I already cut the separate pages. Some of these are a little bit, mine are a little bit narrower than some, but I also used a decorative punch for the edges, for some of the edges, not all of them, and that's not necessary. And I'm going to take and fold several pages in half. What I'm doing is I will be making a signature. It's called a signature. It's I'll put several pieces together. Well, we can probably have 4 pieces of paper and a signature. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to line them up and get the crease all together there. Can you see the crease real well? I'm going to make a very, very simple binding. I'm going to take the thread, the string, and bind it through the signature. To put the hole through your signature, depending on how heavy your paper is, you could probably use your needle and poke a hole through it. And since it's going to be a very simple binding, it's just going to be down and through is all. Or if you have heavier papers, an awl, and this is kind of a real thick one. This is more of a woodworking type of awl, but it does work if you have to have it. When I bind, I put it on a cloth so I don't poke holes in my table. I'll use my ruler and try to get my holes even. I'll put them in by an inch. Put a mark big enough I can see them. Okay, let's try it with the needle first. Now this is 4 sheets of the packing paper we're going to go through. That goes through pretty easily. It went all the way through. And I'll go through this hole. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. I have what's called a spine that I'm going to be stitching my signature onto. This is just a little heavier piece of cardboard, whether it's a piece of cereal box, a piece of box you may have, a piece of cardstock. I'm making it the same length as my paper. I'm going to let's put 2 signatures together on this spine. So I'll put 2 of those on my spine. This I will use my awl for, to poke the little holes into the spine, which is the heavier cardboard. This is a crochet cotton, which is strong enough. If you want, you can double it. We'll thread it through our needle. Okay, so I have my binding string ready. I'm going to go through the inside of my signature. I'm going to leave a thread here. I'm going to stitch this also through my spine. That's going to strengthen and hold that together. Then I'm going to come up the other hole. It's there. And come up through the hole in the signature again that we made. There it goes. Okay, we've got it stitched to the spine. And we'll just tie a knot. We'll just knot that right in there. Oops, maybe I could use Janelle's finger. There you go. That's helpful. There, I have one signature bound to my spine. Let's do the next one. We'll fold our pages. Now we'll stack them up. And we're going to do that same hole process. And I'm going to stitch this right on to the same spine with the other one. And there's my holes that are poked in the spine. I'm going to stitch through that. It's going to catch on everything. There we go. I'm going to come back up through the back of the spine into that hole that we punched, the second hole that we punched. Let's move now that I've been wiggling it. So I have that in place. I'm going to tie a knot in there. Use Janelle's finger again to get my knot nice and tight. Thank you. There we go. So now my little book has 2 signatures. Now what I'll do to make that a sturdy little book, I made a little spine covering that will fit my little spine backing. Take my glue, and I'm going to be pretty generous with the glue that I put in my spine cover here. Set my spine right down in there. That'll dry in just a few minutes. And this part of the spine covering is handy to glue whatever you want to put on to create your backing for your book. Whether you use fabric from upholstery samples or fabric that you had as a child, or your cardboard box again, you can paint your cover, you can use regular cardboard to make a cover. One other thing that I have enjoyed doing with some of the books that I have made, inside the spine where you have extra space between your signatures, one thing that's fun to do is, and I'll make another little signature. I'm going to take some ribbon that's a little different color. And I'm just going to tie it into the signature, so it certainly won't be bound in. It won't be permanent. You can move it if you want to. You can add to it if you want to. There you go. And now you've got 3 signatures in your binding, and you can fill that book up with whatever you'd like.
All right, Jennifer, we've been talking about embellishing or enhancing the journals, and
Right.
You brought some things that you have from your home. Can you tell me a little story about them?
Right. Well, some of these are from the little shoebox that I found from my mother's house. And so somebody had crocheted the lace edging, this lace edging, and it looks about the size of a pillowcase cover. So I bet that was a pillowcase edging. And this, I don't even know whose little tablecloth this was, but this little shredded piece of crocheting that was, I nipped off some of the good part and thought that could go behind a picture of somebody that, little grandma, and it'd have a nice little interesting edge. Here I have some watercolor that I've worked on, some little snips that I've worked on that I've just practiced with. Some watercolor that I've made layers of and made it into a a paper clip. I can clip that onto the edge of a book. These are cute little paper clips. These are great. Slip those on. Just to make it interesting and touchable. You can put stamps there. You can get your real old stamps if you saved stamps when you were a kid. These are old stamps from when I was a kid. Remember when stamps were 5 cents and 2 cents? And you can take lines out of a book. This says, maybe I wouldn't be so much worse off if I did get caught. I wonder what that's about. You can take single words and make your own sentences and add them to thoughts in your book as your journal. Your thoughts of what's going on today, what went on in the past. I hesitated to cut up some of the old laces, but you can think of it as taking the old lace and giving it a new life that would be enjoyed again instead of sitting in that cardboard box that would someday go into the landfill. I can take a snip of the lace off and put it into a book and give it to my children to remember Grandma and Grandpa and how they would make their own lace.
And you can get your take and make kits through the curbside pickup. I would love if you go ahead and make a journal to take a picture of it and send it to us. You can include it on our Facebook page if you'd like, or you can go ahead and email it to me. So thank you for joining us. Thank you for taking time out of your schedules to learn a little bit about journal making.